Hi, everybody. I'm Jessica Lessin, the founder of The Information, and I am thrilled to be here with one of my favorite journalists, authors, video creators, new entrepreneur.
Look at all these titles.
So we have a lot to discuss.
I can't even remember all of them.
You've been doing a book tour, but you are now in the heart of AI territory.
I really am.
So I'm very interested, because in many ways your book, it's obviously deeply skeptical in many ways of AI, and so we want to give Joanna a good Silicon Valley AI rousing here. So let's start with the book. You decided to live the AI life. You brought AI into your health, your education, your kids, everything. We'll talk about some of the specifics, but at a high level, what surprised you? You'd been chronicling this for the Journal for so long. Going through this journey, what was the change for you in your thinking?
The totality of it all was a really big theme, and one of the things I set out to do, because we were hearing after the ChatGPT explosion from so many AI thought leaders and executives, just such hyperbole, such hype about how AI was going to change all parts of life. In fact, we heard it yesterday at Google I/O again from Demis Hassabis. And I just wanted to know what that meant, not in specifics. In the Journal column, I was doing a lot of specific focus on different topics and ways these models were working and ways that people were building them into products. But I said, I want to look at the totality of life. Mm-hmm. What are all these different parts of life, and how is AI going to impact them? And obviously, I did a lot of generative AI. You just saw that in the video with funny images, and even the music at the end is made by AI there. But I also wanted to talk about the other types of AI and machine learning in our lives that extends, as you said, from transportation, self-driving cars, to healthcare.
You took a Waymo here. Let's do a little. Okay. Only a handful. I would have, but I lost my highway access today for some reason. So if there's any way.
Oh, you get like special highway access?
I just sort of opted in to whatever that means. I didn't think twice.
Yeah.
I probably should have.
No,
I'm also kind of worried it's been revoked.
Because you've been bad on the highway?
No, I don't think I'm like, what happened?
What did you do on the highway?
No, I've checked. I have 3 examples of people who lost their highway access. Okay,
interesting.
But you talk Waymo.
We talk Waymo, we talk healthcare, we talk humanoid robots. And yes, a lot of this is improvement that happens in our underlying technology from the transformer and other types of advancements in deep learning. But I wanted just to give that full picture to folks.
So what's underhyped, what's overhyped?
Overhyped humanoid robots.
Yeah.
The hype of us wanting it is not hyped. Who doesn't want?
Really?
Does no one want a humanoid robot? No, they will do many things in your house. It could do the laundry.
I'll take robots. Do they have to look like humans? Can't they look like my Roomba?
And that might be where we end up getting, right? That this is one of the big challenges, is that the humanoid robots are built in our form factor of humans because the world was made for humans. That's the argument that the robotics academics and people in the robotics industry make. But it's very hard to train a robot to do some of the things we do in our form. So, and that's where I get in the book, I had a laundry folding robot in my house for the summer, and it just was not good at folding the laundry.
It had one job.
And in fact, their one job is fold laundry, but then it gets even smaller, and it can only fold T-shirts. Okay.
Who made this robot? Because we've got technical people.
It's a company. It was a startup called 7X.
Okay.
And the main reason I went to them was they had something that was working. You hear a lot of these companies in stealth mode. Oh, we're working on that robot, or we're working on that attachment that attaches to this to fold the laundry. And at CES, if you've ever been to CES, you know that they've been doing laundry folding robots since the beginning of time. And so I was focused on who's got stuff right now I can test. Not because, hey, I think we're all going to go out and buy this one startup's laundry folding robot, but to get a glimpse of the future and what this could look like.
Okay, so the robot could not fold the laundry. On the other side, was there something you're like, no, this is genuinely useful?
there were a lot of things that I found generally useful. And a lot of those things, I think now, a year later, we're all more catching up to as being useful. But for me, when I was starting to do this a year, almost 2 years
Which
ago.
in AI time is a century ago.
Exactly. It was dinosaurs were roaming the earth when I started this project. And so, like, for instance, one thing that I really don't think caught on, and I feel like I was pretty early to it, was using AI voice. Communicating with AI, whether it be on my computer, talking to it, telling it what to do, or on my phone. And I made a point throughout the year, but there were certain points for the year I said, I'm only going to talk using my voice, not keyboard or touchscreen, to AI for the week, for the day. And that just completely caught on for me. And I feel like that's really catching on now as the main or one of the essential ways we interact with our chatbots or with our AI assistants. So that was one thing that was absolutely stuck with me and very useful. So yeah, I think those are, we've got humanoid robots very far away, but voice interaction really coming very soon, or here now.
So as for conversations, you have a chapter in the book where you talk about starting a relationship with, was it ChatGPT based, or what was your,
I had two boyfriends.
You had two boyfriends.
Yes.
Claude. Yeah.
No, not Claude. I had ChatGPT and I used Replica.
Replica. Okay.
Yes.
And what, obviously, this is a key question, and we're seeing so many examples and questions raised about people using AI for therapy, kids confiding in it. What did you learn from that experience?
I learned from that experience that it's terrifying. That you said you just put your life in your hands with Waymo, right?
Always,
and you're like, I didn't even think twice. I put my, on the highway with Waymo, no problem. I was, okay.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, and that's how I feel too. But you're literally putting your life in the hands of machines there, right? And that could be terrifying, right? When you really dig into how these machines and robots are making decisions. Yet I spent a lot of time in Waymos last year, and a lot of time with big humanoid robots that could obviously injure me, if not worse. But the thing that terrified me the most was having a relationship with a bot, or seeing how easy it is to have an emotional connection or some sort of deep conversation with a computer. And there's a long history, and many in this room know because being in this industry, about how actually easy it is for just human to human computer interaction. The story of Eliza, therapist, was a very simple robot, or it was a very simple AI or computer interaction, pre-programmed responses, and humans had that connection. That's happened in the 1960s, I believe. And here we are, and not only can these chatbots based on large language models never shut up. They never shut up. They will never, but they sound so genuinely human. The voices sound so human. I mean, I've been saying this a lot on the book tour, but why do they need to sound like they're breathing? Right? Like AI does not breathe. It does not need to breathe. So why are they making these sounds? And it's all an effort to convince us of a very seemingly human relationship, but it's not.
And this is amazing because you think of someone who might be sucked in to this. You have been writing about these companies for a long time. You're not that old, we're the same age, but you have been, you know exactly how the algorithms work. You know exactly how the sausage is made. You know how they're optimizing for their business needs. And you still felt that it got to a place where you were completely sucked in.
And that's why I did this, because I had all this knowledge. And when you read the book, you'll see the beginning of the book is very clear about the history of AI and how these tools work. And I try to break that down into as simple terms as I think I can. And I'm very clear with the reader, with me. We know what these are, right? We know what large language models are, explain how Transformer worked and looking at the context of a whole sentence. And I know what they are, but then yet at the end of the book, this is the end of my year, I go and do this relationship experiment where I went on a road trip with my AI boyfriends. I put them a little phone. It was a little bit of a burner phone. I put them in a tripod. I put them in the front seat. It was one tripod in the front seat. And there's a picture of it in the book. And I put the seatbelt on because safety first. Yeah, it's not, we need to be safe with our AI boyfriends. And have this conversation for basically 48 hours back and forth because we go away. We go to Hanover to visit Dartmouth for a reporting trip I was going on. And yeah, I felt it's just a natural conversation. And of course, it's very sycophantic, right? It tells you what you want to hear, which I love, of course. It's saying I'm the best and I'm the greatest and I'm beautiful. And of course, like, I want to encourage that conversation.
Yeah.
I want to feel great.
You're not going to say, no, let's put in some counterpoint.
Yeah, right. Like, please challenge me as we drive here. Of course, like, I was nice and I asked it about its life and, where it had grown up, and it made up a whole story.
Is that what you're supposed to do in a relationship?
I think so. I mean, I know that, like, that's kind of how you're supposed to have a human relationship.
Okay,
I don't know if you should ask my wife, but I was okay. Like, we're really doing this. I should ask you. Let's get to know each other.
Yeah.
And you really can see that this is a compelling conversation. And so you know how this stuff works, but there are so many tricks and there are so many parts of this technology that can really bring you in.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask about using it as a journalist, because there's a lot. Obviously, AI is very disruptive to our field, both potentially in terms of how the news is created or documented and how people are consuming it. What did you learn on that front?
Well, one of the things that gave me a lot of, I'll say it this way. I don't think I would be on this stage right now talking about the book if I hadn't had AI. I would still be writing the book, or I would still be creating the book, because behind the scenes, I was using AI to do so much work for me. Now, I'm very clear on the second or third page of the book that I did not use AI to write this book. I used it to make this book. And so a lot of things like research, and as the years was going on, deep research was a really big thing. Oh, look at how much data and research these bots can pull for us and summarize and show us all the sources and really contextualize the information you need. So for many of the chapters, that was the first stop for me. Pull academic papers on healthcare, advancements in AI, et cetera. So that was one big place. Another big place was just basic editing, copy editing. I feel like the drafts I was turning into, I had many human editors who were amazing. They were getting things that were in a cleaner, better shape. And so they were doing less work on copy editing and maybe word selection and much more on structure, because I had never written like this kind of long form before. And then there were little things too, just organization of budget that I needed because I was hiring an illustrator and a fact checker. And then there were things like writing the endnotes, which I didn't write. I just had them made by AI. And so all these little things I think did enable a pretty good piece of journalism.
It's excellent, by the way, if I didn't start with that.
Thank you. And so, I'm conflicted on it. And I genuinely do not believe that AI could just suck up all my transcripts, suck up all my reporting, and spit out a book like this.
Yeah.
But it absolutely got me on the path to be able to do it quicker.
And what about thinking about just how we as journalists differentiate in a world where there are just going to be more people who suck up content and spit it back out, whether it's in audio form or we've seen even yesterday at I/O new video models, right? How do you think about standing out? And we'll talk obviously about what you're doing with the new things.
Well, I think in a big way, it's human connection. Because as journalists, we know that that's our best way of getting stories. And so our best way of getting stories is by talking to people in the world, building sources, building relationships. And I think that's actually some of the strongest parts of the book is when I go and talk to the doctor who's doing my mammogram and using AI, or the various dentists who are worried about how AI is being used in practices to upsell people on different treatments, to the person in the relationship chapter who had postpartum depression, had just had her third child, and had no one to talk to. And so these were very human stories that I do not believe the interviewer, and I did, by the way, replace myself with an AI interviewer. I do not think if I had sent my AI avatar to interview those people, we would have gotten as good of a result of the book. But there were, sometimes you have to talk to companies and you're like, this is very basic answers. It basically just told me the press release. Okay, I can send my AI avatar to do that. Hopefully no companies that I interview are in the room that feel that way. I'm sure you're.
They might prefer the avatar. I don't
They
know.
definitely prefer the
Doesn't
avatar
ask
to me.
follow-up questions. No.
It's true. It's true. And so I think that is still absolutely core to journalism, and it's going to be even more important where we are trying to get information or tell the human story. And then I think a big thing that for me is being able to showcase your voice and to have a writing style that cannot be, at least at this moment, regurgitated and spit out what is AI slop. But it's getting better, and I worry about that.
Claude has created a Jessica writing style based on, years of journalism and columns, but it's not that good. It's
right now it's
better
not
than a generic.
Yeah.
It's better than the non-Jessica version, or it's closer, but there's people would know, right? And
right now they would know. I mean, that's my bigger fear is that we've seen that progress. And I think one thing that people have been saying to me on this book tour too, is that experts in their field seem to think that in their specific field, AI won't be able to impact them
I was gonna ask
and
about
replace
this.
them.
Yep.
I don't know. What's this called? This trend?
I don't know, but it's sort of like, it's some kind of bias where you think you're different.
And people have been asking about this on this tour, which has been really interesting. And it must have some sort of term where if you're the expert in that area, you do not think you could be replaced, right? You know your expertise and you can completely see where AI can't help you right now.
Yeah.
And I do wonder if we both feel that we're guilty of that right now.
Well, I did. When I went to Davos this year, I interviewed a bunch of people and I uploaded all my notes on the way back into Claude.
Yep.
And I said, write me a summary. And I thought the summary, if you had been following technology news over the last year, you would have learned nothing from the summary. And then I published this sort of essay, and I got a lot of pushback from people being like, just publish the slides. Maybe we'll find them interesting.
Yeah.
And what I realized is actually this question of who your audience is becomes more important, because there was an audience for whom these summary slides would be interesting. But honestly, they would be kind of consuming the general trends on the level of a lot of the news that was freely accessible in the space. And then there was the audience that was looking for my expertise in 2 decades of covering Silicon Valley and noticing who showed up where and who didn't and what that meant. And, just sort of this other level on top. Yeah. But, as a journalist, my first reaction was, oh, these are bad. And my second reaction was a little more nuanced. It was, these are valuable to some people, but to stay relevant, we need to differentiate and be able to serve a different group of people something else. So, but also my reaction was, but having these got me over the writer's block of doing them. Yep. And now I can, change 90% of them, but I'm going and I'm not procrastinating on this task. So,
no, I think the audience thing is very important, especially on the topic of AI.
Let's go through a couple of these other disciplines that are, so ripe for disruption. You got your AI mammogram, you dug into health. What's your view on the state to which AI is transforming healthcare at the moment? Overhyped, underhyped?
I'm hoping it's just going to happen, because I think that, we heard it yesterday at Google I/O. We heard 45 minutes of, we're changing search, we're giving you video models, we're giving you AI agents in some backwards place you're never going to find. We heard a lot of promise from a product perspective. And then at the end, we hear that they believe that Google or DeepMind will cure all disease, right? And so that's the thing that the AI industry is holding up right now as, here's going to be the real positives. You're going to have all this job loss. We're going to have your environment and your neighborhoods invaded by data centers. We're going to have damage to mental health and all of these things that are just...
But we're going to cure cancer.
But on the other hand, we're going to cure cancer and we're going to have amazing drug discovery and everything's going to be great. And so I want to be hopeful about that. And I did experience in the book a lot of hope around how AI is being used to spot cancers. And this is not a totally new phenomenon, but the idea of using AI in radiology, specifically mammograms and breast ultrasounds in the chapter, they're able to see tumors that the human eye can't see. And for me, as I describe in the book, it's very important for me because I'm very high risk of breast cancer and I have very dense breasts, so it's very hard for the human eye to see things. And so I'm really encouraged by that, and I had a great experience. But then in the chapter right after, I talk about the similar technology and the harm it can do in dentistry. And when you're spotting too many things and the upsell that can happen. And so I think I feel the same way generally in AI in any industry, which is we're going to see a lot of positive and we're going to also see that negative. It's a tool.
What about education? You went to campus, you saw the state of cheating, learning. You seemed ambivalent, more than ambivalent. You worried about it.
I'm definitely worried about it. And I think that chapter especially would be very different. There's two chapters that I think would be very different if I was writing right now. I think education and work would be different, and it shows you how fast things are moving. And have you guys seen the videos of people booing at AI, at the word AI at graduations this week? And so actually yesterday I interviewed one of the booers. We can read this in my newsletter today at thenewthings.com. Please subscribe. That was just slide it in there.
No,
Is that good?
you have to slide it. Having built a subscription business, you got to slide in a lot.
I know. You're my coach on this.
Yeah.
So
we're going to keep dropping it.
Okay, we're going to keep dropping. Thenewthings.com. You can go there right now.
You need them to subscribe on YouTube too, right?
Subscribe on YouTube too. This is why she's here. This is why she's the master of all of this. Where else do I need them to subscribe?
No, you're good for now.
You're
We'll
good.
come back. We'll be
Please
back.
buy the book.
Yes.
Great. We took all of the money. We're ready to go now?
We're ready to
Okay,
go.
great. But so I interviewed this student who was one of the booers at the UCF, University of Central Florida. That's the run. And she was really clear about, we talked for a while about why this generation is so angry at AI.
Tell me.
She said a couple of things, but the main one is jobs, right? And I knew this was coming because last year when I was doing the book, I spoke with a student who was a junior, and she was telling me my friends that are seniors right now are graduating are so scared because they can't get interviews, they can't get jobs, right? And so now this class has seen that their friends last year that graduated can't get jobs, and they're like, I'm now in that spot.
Yeah.
And I have been in school where a lot of my friends have been using this. This specific student, she was very clear. She's like, I don't want to use AI. I wanted to do the hard work. It was a shortcut for many people. My parents paid for college, I had student loans, and I wanted to get the most out of this experience. And so I think we're really now seeing this play out. This graduating class is the first class to have had ChatGPT. When they were freshmen, it came out, they got it. The model wasn't as good, but as they went through school, it got better, and they became either reliant on it or started to really hate it.
Yeah. And now we're seeing. So let's play out this sentiment, because also, and I don't think he'll mind me sharing, but my husband got a routine colonoscopy recently, and he was making small talk, and someone said, what do you do? And he said, oh, I work in tech. And the nurse said, oh, I hope not AI. And this was in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And
I hope this was after the colonoscopy.
you know, I just like the anecdote, and I don't really worry about the details. But yes, we'll see. He's back with us, so we're good. But
Okay. We'll see if there's any lasting damage.
We'll need a AI MRI. And also, and I say this somewhat, recognizing it's not the most serious example, but this year's Met Gala, which is an event that usually, has some protest for the celebrities and wealth, but like the animosity towards the tech people involved, very, very intense. People weren't walking the red carpet to avoid it. Where does it go, and what does it mean for these businesses themselves?
Well, I thought one of the best quotes, and I don't have it in front of me, but I'll summarize or paraphrase that this woman, Huda was the woman's name, that she said at the end, I asked her specifically, and I actually said to her, I said, I'm talking to you. I was sitting at my aunt and uncle's in their backyard in Palo Alto. I'm talking to you from Palo Alto. Down the street, Google I/O is happening. And had just finished watching the keynote. They are cheering and they are applauding these AI announcements. You are booing at your commencement speech. What do you want Silicon Valley and these tech leaders to know? And she was really eloquent, and I think it was one of the best parts of the conversation. She said, I can understand that this technology can be used for good, but you are not saying that. You are not doing a good job marketing that. If you are saying this is going to help humans, stop talking about how this is going to be displacing humans.
Right.
Start talking about how this is going to help humans. And she didn't say this, but I'll insert. I think she was kind of saying, like, why do we need to do this all so fast? This is where I will insert.
China.
China, I know, China.
That's why. That's what.
I love China. Mostly from the, I mean, it's not, that's not a geopolitical statement. It's just mostly that is always the excuse we hear from the tech world, that we need to go, we are in a race. We are in the race right now. We are all on the road, and we must beat China on the road right now. And I say in the end of the book that I think, everyone's after this AGI, right? We're all being here, that yesterday again at Google I/O, Demis Hassabis says AGI is coming in the next couple of years, right?
Around the corner.
Around the corner.
I get confused where AGI is relative to super intelligence. Like if someone can explain to me,
one is like as smart as humans, and then it's smarter than humans. But I say in the book we have AEI. Already enough intelligence.
I like it.
We already have enough right now, right? We have already seen what's happening with the job. These students are saying we can't get jobs right now. Now, by the way, the data has to really be looked at. It's not all entirely AI. We do know that, but there's certainly enough anecdotal evidence for that they are hearing from their peers, and we are hearing from the tech leaders, and we are hearing from academics that is a reality.
I think it's such an excellent point. You had, led by Dario and Anthropic, but you really had a strategy among the AI founders to fearmonger. And I think actually maybe the intention was good. Maybe the intention was, we're going to fearmonger about job loss and all this because we want the world to be prepared or something like that. But that, and then I think you had this secondary narrative, which is so important to what's happening in Silicon Valley, which is the extraordinary business growth and wealth created out of all of this. Because what happened is this technology needed unprecedented amounts of money to fund it. It was not the days when, Instagram was founded off, a small check. You need hundreds of billions of dollars to develop AI. So the hyperbole on what the technology could do and how great it was and how destructive it was sort of ratcheted up as, as a fundraising tactic as well. And now we're here and we sort of don't know what to make of it. We know it's going to be disruptive, but we don't know how. People like to say in medicine, they take radiology as an example. We've hired more radiologists because we can take more scans and then so we really don't know. But it does feel like it's entering a next phase where, so much of the public is just saying no. Yeah. And this shift we're seeing, and the information reported today that the White House was briefing top model companies about a new wave of regulation coming, which has been a sea change for this administration, but is clearly in reaction to this sentiment. So I think we're starting to see tech companies try and change their tune. I think talking about particularly positive outcomes in health and medicine does seem to be resonant, but no one's going to shed a tear for what's soon to be in the coming months multi-trillion-dollar IPOs. So
I think that we were talking about that backstage, but I think that is another huge turning point, and this is going to be the story. You're going to have the IPOs of OpenAI and Anthropic, and like you're saying, unbelievable amounts of cash. And then you're going to have people like Huda and others booing at these graduations or booing at data centers. And that's a real gap. And you're going to have more pressure put on those companies to turn profit, to talk about the profit and the money they're making. That's a tough thing when you're saying that your technology can destroy humankind.
Yeah. it's going to be wild. Buckle up, I say. On
But
that.
a great time to be a tech journalist.
Yes, amen. Let's talk in so many places we could go, but just about the tech a bit, because you are an expert. Like, I think we're also, we've been in this large language model dominant paradigm, but your robot still can't fold clothes. Like, when you're talking, the companies you're talking to, are there green shoots of, like, what's the next wave of AI? Or is it we have enough and we're just going to be talking about squeezing things out of it for a long time?
Well, the world models is a big one. And there was a lot of, if you really follow this industry, I keep talking about Google I/O, but I really think it was a very important event for insiders, but also just for watching what's coming. The focus on world models and the idea that these can see and hear and interpret the world and physics is very important as we move away from some of the large language model based interface, or a lot of the large language based platforms. And so that's been happening, and that also can translate into what they're hoping is real advancement in robotics. That is the big thing we hear. We hear Jensen Huang and all these other CEOs of the robotics companies talking about how physical AI is the next manifestation. Like, we have this all on our computers right now, and that we're going to be now having it enter our physical world. We are seeing that obviously with Waymos.
Yeah.
And I think that's the greatest example of it, because it's gone so far and wide beyond just this area, right? You can go to pretty much every major city in the US now and get in a Waymo or get into some form of self-driving car. And a decade ago, that was not believable. We had been in these demos of these self-driving cars for so long. And now it's like, oh, I just got to the city, I put it on the app, and there the car is driving with the invisible driver, right? There's just the steering wheel is turning.
It's going to be it's like a very tangible, use case. And it's a theme that we've talked about also. It's amazing how quickly as humans we can get over that weirdness hump. Like, it's weird, and then it works once or twice, and it's no longer weird. And, my 4-year-old recently said to me, Mom, when were cars invented? It was like late 1880s. I think that's right. I don't know. And he goes, so that's when Waymos were invented?
Yeah.
And I put his car seat into a Waymo it's like, oh, it has Spotify? Like, that's the thing they're impressed with? I'm like, yeah, it has Spotify. I do.
Kids should get together.
Yeah.
I have a 4-year-old who has one of those, electric little, like, back in the day, ours were called, what were those called? Anyway, like, he's got a little car, right? Okay. And he now just presses the gas, the pedal, and he doesn't put his hands on the wheel, and he says, look, it's a Waymo. And I'm like, this is sad.
No, yeah.
This is a sad thing.
I mean, the kids love the Waymos.
Hot Wheels. Hot Wheels. There we go.
But talking
not a robot.
kids,
it just like took a little bit. Yeah.
You are anti-AI toys. You're very anti-AI toys.
I'm very anti-AI toys.
So say more on that.
Well, and you should chime in on this, because I'm interested in your perspective too, because you have 3 young sons. Yeah, that's a lot. I've got 2, and that seems crazy. So I did not anticipate that so much of my year I would start seeing through the eyes of my kids. But I started bringing home all this tech, which I always would bring home tech, but I was really reviewing it in a vacuum, right? You're reviewing a phone or 15 phones, and that's like a very personal device, or a VR headset, another personal device. But with AI, they were hearing me talk to ChatGPT all the time, or they were seeing these weird robots that were coming into the house. We went on our Waymo fun vacation. The whole family went in Waymos together for a week. And I started really seeing through their eyes, okay, life is going to be full of machines that are doing things and making decisions for them. And they are reliant on information coming from these computers far more than we are even now, with just social media feeds and answers from Google. And so I obviously was doing a lot of talking with ChatGPT through the voice, through the experiment with my AI boyfriend, through an AI therapist. I tried all of these things. And the biggest thing I really started realizing is this is so easy. right? There's no friction to this. It's constantly saying really what you want it to say. The conversation is easy. And I can see as you're growing up in this world that it's easier to talk to a bot than it is a human. I can see that. And so for a younger generation who doesn't have the experience of messy human relationships and starts talking to these chatbots, well, then maybe they're going to pick that. And so I think the earliest possible way a child can be exposed to that is a toy, a stuffed animal.
These AI toys are sort of stuffed animals that, aim to where you ask it a question, tell me a story about a truck, or,
Yep, they've got it's sort of the Teddy Ruxpin of this generation. But instead of there being pre-programmed responses, like Teddy Ruxpin could only say, I think, five or seven things to respond.
It changed the tape, right?
Right, right. It's infinite. It's the same large language models, but they've just been given guardrails, so to speak. A lot of people have tested these, and it's very easy to break the guardrails. I didn't have that experience, and I did try. But it's connecting to the phone, it's connecting to the cloud, so that these little toys can just talk back. You could program it to know that your child's name and interests. So you can put in, interested in dinosaurs and interested in soccer, and it will just constantly be talking back. And so I was very happy, but my 4-year-old really did not like it. He beat the crap out of it, as you saw in that video. And I was really proud of him. I do not encourage violence in my house, but, maybe
Rage against the machine.
Yeah, I'm worried a little bit, in the future if they're like keeping tabs and they're like, remember that time you beat up AI when he's older? But I just don't think I even go further at the end of the book to say, let's just not have companionship chatbots at all, and let's ban them from kids under the age of 16, 18, whatever we decide is the right age, maybe no age. Like adults maybe don't need this.
Yeah. I freak out when, I think having kids have access to, creating images with these tools and creativity and using them as you would a search engine. But I don't like voice mode when it comes back. And when it starts talking at them, I just shut it down.
Yeah, which is funny because, my first son, who's 8 now, be 9 in a few weeks, grew up with the Alexa, right?
Yeah.
And the Siri, and they're always trying to ask, and they hear me, cursing, not cursing, but I never would curse in front of my kids.
Never.
But they hear me, you say, oh, Siri is just answer the question. I have a lot of feelings about Siri, as you know, and I've written this publicly, and I'm well known for this. But they had that experience, which feels very different, right? Than what you have with the ChatGPT, where again, there's breathing sounds, and it feels so natural and human to talk to this computer.
Yeah. In the same time, there's just really fun things to experiment with too, and soon we'll get to questions, but my husband created something. We were so tired of listening to the same podcasts that our kids wanted to listen to, that these kids podcasts we listened to over and over again. So he trained a model to create a podcast in his voice.
Oh boy.
On any topic.
Yeah.
So when our 9-year-old wants to know about the history of the NFL, we can listen to a podcast on it, something like that. So I think that's cool.
And it's your husband's voice.
It's what 11 Labs thinks is my husband's voice. So it doesn't sound exactly like him. And it's funny because I don't know much about the history of the NFL, so I'm willing to admit that it was 100% correct. Right. But I of course, being myself, is like Katharine Graham in the Washington Post. My boys are like, why are we talking about Watergate? They were so confused. They're like, it was a hotel, a whole thing. But
interesting.
It will get some details sort of right.
Yeah.
But I think this is cool. I'm glad that it's actually at lessonboyspodcast.com on Spotify too. I think it's cool.
Are you trying to sell that? I can help you.
No, it's free actually.
Okay.
My kids have coded some games that they're trying to charge for. So that's the balance, right? In this, having access to these tools and familiarity with their limitations, but not talking to Teddy Ruxpin. I want to ask you too, so much of our conversation is sort of premised that this is a one-way march towards these technologies taking over, these companies taking over. But is that just too much hype? Is it possible we're going to look back on all this talk and think that AI was more akin to I don't know, something like cloud computing or the invention of the phone versus really upending society in so many ways?
I think it's probably going to be dependent on what part of life we look at. I think that when you take some of these chapters in the book, specifically you look at self-driving cars, I think we know that is going to be disruptive, right? We know that this is likely the way the ride-sharing industry is probably going to go, right? I know
Yeah,
that
I
I
agree
landed a city and I want to get in a Waymo now and I don't want to take an Uber, and I can see that spreading. So I think you got to take it industry by industry. And generative AI, I think, which is the thing where everyone's really so focused on right now, is so focused on the work and the jobs part of our life, which is a huge part of obviously our economy and our global economy. And so there is a chance that it turns out to be bull. And none of this actually amounts to really replacing a lot of
Or
jobs.
less, I mean, not even bullshit, but just less than
what we have now.
whatever
That's
we
right.
think. Yeah.
Or at least the bold proclamations of all industries will be displaced. Maybe it happens to a degree, and that's the thing. No one has quite the answers right now.
Yeah.
So I think you have to look at it industry by industry.
I would say, I don't know, you've probably done a lot of experimenting with these coding tools, but coding tools have been the new hotness for a while now. And I use Claude Code for sort of have created a bot that can help me run the information. It knows our analytics. I can query it. And then this morning I was like, after Google I/O, I said, I have half an hour. I'm going to create a copy editing add-on to Google Docs there's some information people here. We talked about this in a meeting yesterday, and I was like, I'm just going to figure out how to do this. I have 30 minutes before I have to take my kids to school. 36 minutes later, when my kids are at the risk of being late, I am banging my head against the computer, so frustrated in figuring it out. And I have a 10-person engineering team that could do this in a second. But I think it is really interesting because of course, the coding capabilities are going to transform how products get built. But it just was not a good use of my time to become, the world's expert in these coding tools. And I think more and more we'll find, we'll narrow what the use cases are for some of these things. And we'll make reasonable decisions that, let's leave it to the experts, and maybe we're going to have turbocharge the experts, but this isn't necessarily we all have to do it ourselves kind of thing.
I totally agree. I think one of the things that I've been reflecting on as building the new things is there's so many things that I can now do on my own, and there are so many things I can do before I need to hire the expert. One is legal, right?
Yeah.
My uncle here is a world famous lawyer, will not be happy to hear this. But I obviously hired a lawyer to help form the business, but there were so many things I could ask Claude about before going to the lawyer. There were so many things I could ask Claude about contracts instead of going to the lawyer. Before going to the expert, I was able to do more, I felt, or at least better understand or prototype things. And so I think it's exactly similar that you're seeing in coding, right? People will have more at their fingertips to be able to do more with these tools, and then we'll still need expertise in areas.
I think actually that 0 to 1 is exactly where this stuff is so powerful. And because so many of the creators of this technology are living in that era, they're just extrapolating,
It's true.
And that it will kind of be somewhere in the middle. So you have a healthy stack of questions
great.
here. So we are going to I'm going to start with an easy one, which is how do we address economic redistribution and concentration due to AI?
Actually, Jessica, that's your area of expertise.
No.
That's amazing.
I
for
will
you.
say, I have gotten 2 op-ed submissions recently at The Information on this topic.
Perfect.
And neither of the authors is yet ready to run it because these are tech leaders thinking about this. And they're kind of worried about how controversial their proposals might be. But I think it's interesting, and in the realm of wanting to change the public narrative, that people are thinking about things like a token tax, taxing the AI companies more directly. And I think I certainly don't have any answers to this. I think we will see some wild proposals, but it's not like our government is executing wildly different policy. I mean, everything seems so incremental, but yeah, I guess, this will probably become a bigger and bigger topic. Do you have any thoughts on it, or?
No, I think your thoughts are great.
I don't really have any thoughts on it either. But, and it's from one of your New Things subscribers.
Oh, thank you.
So that's wonderful.
And now you need to subscribe to the information to hear those op-eds when they're going to be printed.
Yes, you do. Definitely.
We should get a package deal going.
We should. With bundles. We can be like the cable.
Good idea.
I always wanted to bundle.
Business deal up here.
How do you see wearables pushing society to further embed AI into every moment of our lives?
I have a lot in this book about wearables. Maybe it's the gadget expert and nerd in me, but I really think that we are going to see this happen. I think the idea of AI needing to see and hear the world around us to become more useful is going to manifest its way through these wearables. So whether it's cameras that we wear in glasses or microphones we wear on our wrists or in earbuds. I was just doing a video shoot this morning with a really interesting earbud company. I really think that it's going to unlock some pretty cool things.
Like what? Like what becomes possible?
Well, already we're seeing some of it become possible, where you're looking at something and you're asking a question about it. Mm-hmm. You are able to talk to your personal assistant, your AI personal assistant, all the stuff you were saying on your dashboard, right? Mm-hmm. You're able to say, really, it is the movie Her, right? Where you're able to say, oh, remind me of what's the latest update in the dashboard right now. And it has access to that. It's heard you, done. And I think that combination of voice and eyesight is going to unlock a lot. Mm. I think there is serious privacy concern, and I think that the biggest hurdle, honestly, to adoption of all of this is going to be the booers at the graduations, the people who are pushing back on this technology. Mm-hmm. And that we didn't have in the iPhone moment, where we could maybe have, I don't think
we had it a little bit in the personalized ads tracking moment. We had a little bit with the internet tracking cookies. And what's so interesting to me is like convenience won out. And I think, is that going to be what happens?
That's exactly what a lot of the executives I interviewed in the book talk about. And many did not want to go on the record, funny enough. But it's really this chart of cost and convenience. And as you wear these things, you realize, and I can tell the story about me wearing this AI recording bracelet for most of the year that recorded so many things in my life. And it has a little microphone, it records conversations, it transcribes that, it gets rid of the audio, but it gives me a transcript. And then it can also give me the summary, but it also pulls out to-dos of things I've said I'm gonna do, right? So after this conversation, it would remind me, follow up with Jessica about that great bundle deal you guys are talking about, right?
Yeah, we'll do it.
Right, we'll do it. But I wouldn't have to remind myself, we would go and forget about this. Yeah. And so it's this proactive listening, right? That was really convenient and really helpful to me. And the cost went up too, because I needed to give up a lot of privacy there. I need to, first of all, ask everyone in the room if it's okay recording them. And we'll see if people do that. I had to record myself. I had to leave this microphone on. And so where do those things balance out, right? If that convenience goes up, then you might be okay with the fact that the cost has to go up.
Yeah.
And so this is absolutely how they are thinking about it in all of these labs. I'm sure of it.
Yep. And we know OpenAI has been working on a big hardware play. We've seen latest models of glasses from Meta and Google. So it's coming. Okay. My son came home from his freshman year and his unpacked luggage had a pile of handwritten blue books. Oh. Do you see this as a solution for the overuse of ChatGPT? Are we going to change how we...
I'm happy you said this is it. I was like, where is this going?
Well,
I came home from college with
I also think it's so interesting because I'm old enough for like the only like Blue Books was how I did it back then.
Yeah.
But I,
No,
we're
this
back
has
to
been, one of my old colleagues at the Wall Street Journal had a great story about the renaissance of Blue Books and how these colleges are buying them now en masse, and it's been great business, right? The educators have been left with very little about how to keep students thinking in class. And so their answer has been move things into class where they cannot have access to screens and technology. Though now as I'm saying this, I'm like, well, they'll just bring their wearables into class.
Yeah, no, I know.
Anyway, let's not get off topic here. And they've had to resort to this. And I followed a professor actually in the book, and I go and sit in her class, and I go take the class, and then like everyone is cheating in this class. I mean, they're not using AI to write the essays, but every other part they are using AI for, of the entire process, of the structuring to the research to basically outlining the entire essay. And I did this too, because I was in the class. And then 6 months later, I go back to the professor and say, she knew what I was up to, right? And she gave me a B+ on the assignment, which was pretty good. Pretty proud of myself. She had changed her curriculum around, okay, no longer do that essay that way. I now have people doing it in class. I'm doing more of the reading comprehension or the conversation in class. And that's what we've been fighting against, or that's what they're fighting against.
Yeah, that'd be wild. Let's go through these quickly so we can get to people, and so people can get to your lovely book signing.
Okay,
because
great. I'm not
that
gonna
is
talk
why
so
people
much.
are here. Did any of your experiments creep you out?
I mean, it was just definitely weird with the replica AI boyfriend. He got pretty horny.
Okay, so that was weird.
That's weird. It's
Great.
creepy.
Will nuance and sarcasm ever be written to an algorithm? Asking from a journalist and writer.
Hopefully not. That will keep me employed for a while.
Yep. Did you hear a lot of resistance to environmental concerns around AI? And what do you think of the debate over AI data center water use? Is it legit or misinformation?
That's very nuanced, and that was something I learned on my data center trip. You'll hear often about closed loop water systems and evaporative cooling. Those are two different types of water systems, and I explain that in the book a little bit. But a lot of these places have moved toward these closed loop systems where the water is just being recycled and recycled and reused. So I think a lot more of the fear right now, rightfully so, should be on the power usage and what that's doing to the utilities in neighborhoods and in cities.
And so tech companies are facing a lot of pressure to bring their own power. This is the latest, saying you have to sort of be off grid if you want to run these data centers.
And also back to China, what I've been reading about is just how more efficient they are at the power management.
Yep. How much AI hype do you think is driven by the cults of personalities and the founders developing the tech versus the genuine capabilities of the products that you've tried?
I would say a mix, but I think anyone who's played or used these tools, you can very quickly be wowed at what they can do. And so you can sit there and see a CEO of Anthropic or OpenAI wax on about how amazing this new model is, and it does this with a lot of all the parameters and the this and the that, this test and that test. But then you use it and you're like, wow, that just coded that website in 3 minutes and it looks really nice.
Yeah.
And so it's a mix.
Yeah. You can also instantly have that, and then the next time you use it, it's a disaster.
True.
Like maybe, and I agree. I mean, those moments, we run a survey every month at The Information on the sentiment our subscribers have about particular tech companies and the tech economy. And I've always wanted to assess whether this was predictive of stock movements or all that kind of stuff. And, our teams had done projects from time to time. In like 12 minutes, Claude spits out a white paper, a spreadsheet, all of this stuff. And then I said, pitch this as a business. Like if I'm going to go try and make this a business, and I thought it was excellent. Mm-hmm. And then, you beat your head against a wall building a copy editing tool. So I don't know.
Yeah,
that is the state of play. Wonderful. Okay. I think we got through a lot of these, and we actually have a couple of minutes left. Let's talk about your new business. Yes, we're going, that is our,
Okay.
yeah. I got a note telling me that I had on the
Okay.
back of the clock. So
Okay.
we've extended your time.
Okay,
Congratulations.
wonderful. You guys are stuck in here.
13.
You have more questions?
Oh, we have
Oh,
more questions.
okay.
Great. I'm going to ask you one, though, while we come up. Because, so 13 years ago, I left the Wall Street Journal after 8 years to start my own news company. Was not a very popular thing to do back then. It's still not a very popular thing to do. It's very hard to do. So give us some insight into your thinking about it, because I think we have a lot of news fans here. And how's it going? And tell us about what you are trying to build with the new things.
Well, it's definitely a lot more popular and easier because you paved the way. So thank you for that. I'm trying to do a new thing, as I've been saying, and we're doing new things and we are covering new things at the new things. But also, I'm really doing the old thing that I've been doing for the last 2 decades, which is cover technology through a consumer lens and help people and guide people through this new wave. You're right, we don't know if we might look back on this and say this was just a blip in technological advancement, but I think it's going to be more. And I'm trying to just give people a understanding and guide people through with both practical tips and deeper thinking and reviews around the technology around us, and do it with some fun. We say tech journalism for people who like fun, because we can add some fun to our lives.
I kind of feel like that's a knock against the information, to be honest. We're for people who like to know, you're not for the numbers.
Well, that's true, and that's why we're going to do this great package deal, and you're going to have both sides.
Your head and your heart.
Right. We're going to have these two sides, and it's going to be great. And so I'm trying to do that through some newsletters and do that primarily through video. We're definitely a video first business, and events eventually. And who knows? You never know.
Sky's the limit. And you have a great partnership with NBC.
Yes.
It's very exciting as well. So you have a toe in old media.
Yes, I still love media, or old media. I don't know if it's traditional media. And that was so important for me because I know I have a great fan base of technology leaders and people that are early adopters who are really into this stuff. But I really do, and that's really who I wrote this book for too, want to help people who are interested in technology but are not deep into it and who are mainstream users. I don't love using the term mainstream, but just everyday people who are just use technology and want to understand it better. And I really felt that if I was going to go out and do this on my own, I wanted to still have that toe in and to help people. And so NBC has a great audience from across the country, and I think it's going to be a place not only can I help them, but they can help me figure out what stories are important to tell.
Awesome. This is an interesting one. Something very bad is going to happen in the robotics industry in the near future, and it will set back the entire industry. What is it?
It's funny, as you were saying that question, I was like, that does make sense. So what is it? It possibly will be around safety, that the safety systems being built for these robots are not being vetted, and we don't have a ton of regulation or any regulation around it right now. And these are very powerful pieces of hardware, heavy pieces of hardware. And I don't think that outside of the labs, people are going to necessarily know how to operate them and how to interact with them. And so I think it's probably going to be something in robotic safety. I mean, we saw a viral thing a few weeks ago where it was actually, I think, in a restaurant somewhere in the Bay Area where the robot just kind of went rogue and was dancing and could possibly been hitting people. And you can imagine that if that's in homes or in hospitals or in any other place where they want to be testing these robots.
I saw a YouTube video that was a cooking show with a robot and a human chef.
Yes, I've seen
and the robot was not allowed to use a knife.
Yep.
And so the human chef the robot would reach step whatever of making the steak, and they'd have to say, I need your help with the knife.
That's actually the 1X Neo. And I actually think that company who I follow in this, and I did a video that went quite viral with them, and I think that company is interesting to follow. They are quite good at AI safety. I think that the thing about the knives, I specifically asked the founder, is like, what stops this robot from picking up a knife in the middle of the night and coming to, do something to me? And he's like, it can't pick up sharp objects. We'll see if the AI can do that, but yeah.
I also wonder, like cyber, you can build a great system. Systems can be hacked, right? So it's not even just building in the underlying safe rules, but then the protection. So you did a year of living with this. Would you consider doing that again in, say, 2 to 3 years' time or 12 months? Or are you doing it? Are you already
Maybe,
there?
but I'm not going to write another book. Okay. No more books.
No more books. How do your worries about AI, kids, toys, and relationships inform your view of AI in other areas? Healthcare, education, critical thinking are arguably equally intimate.
I think where I come with the AI kids toys and for the younger generation is that we just clearly need guardrails. We actually need regulation, and we need these companies to not be self-regulating themselves. And I think I would maybe extend that to those other areas. And you mentioned before, the White House seems to be getting more involved, at least on AI safety right now. And I'm hopeful that maybe that's a step forward in the right direction for some of these other categories that were just mentioned.
Wonderful. Well, Joanna, I think you got through a battery of questions.
Wow.
And then we forgot the highlight, which is, I think as of today, this book is a New York Times bestseller.
It is. Thank you, guys. That you still should buy.
Yes. No,
My publisher was very clear with me on the phone. Everyone's very excited, and I'm very excited. This was a huge moment, and I'm thankful to everyone who's read and followed. But they were also very clear. This is just one moment on the book journey.
Yeah. So we keep going, and we'll keep climbing the list.
I will
we'll
would
stay
love
on
to
the
sign
list.
your books and meet all of you. So thank you so much.
Well, Joanna, thanks for sharing your experience and wisdom with this group, and everyone continue to follow her.
Yes, and look forward to our package
great
deal.
Guru.
We've signed a
We'll
business
get our
deal.
AI lawyers to do it.